Look, I'm excited, you're excited, everyone's excited for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It is literally an incredible film. I wish I had the opportunity to see it in theaters. Unfortunately, it did not come to China. And what's even worse is that Shanghai Disneyland does not have an Avengers campus. So, to prepare for the reopening of Shanghai Disneyland, I decided I think I'm gonna make my own little Disney-bound jacket, just in case. Now, this jacket can be utilized for anything really. You can use it for a simple Disney-bound, or as a lot of people might use it for a cosplay, because who would not want this incredible punk-inspired America Chavez jacket? First, I'm gonna start off by lining my jackets with tape. The tape prevents any kind of bleed through. I really want clean, crisp lines when I start off at the top of my jacket. This particular jacket is so beautiful, and I love the costume design behind it because even though in the comics her jacket is a little bit more simple, there's a lot more texture and detail within this jean jacket that she utilizes. Now, I will say it is really difficult to just create distressed looks. You usually have to start off with creating the look and then wearing and tearing down the fabric so that it looks more distressed. To give it more of an illusion, I really wanted to give those clean-cut, crisp lines, so I lined the jacket with masking tape, and the masking tape prevents any kind of bleed through. Now, of course, because fabric is so finicky, you're not always going to get the cleanest lines that you really want, but don't worry about that, especially for something like this where you're doing more of a punk rock style anyway. I thoroughly enjoy looking at imperfections because in the end, imperfections really make each and every individual garment unique and just so beautiful to the wearer themselves. Now here I'm going over the garment with thin layers of fabric paint. It's really important that you really want to go over the fabric with thin layers because you don't want it to feel weighted and heavy. I see so many YouTube videos where people just kind of pour paint on fabric, and when you do that, it gives you this kind of clumpy mess in the end. The fabric paint isn't distributed and it doesn't feel nice to the touch. It feels like kind of like a sticker or some kind of iron-on, and that's not what you want when you're working with fabric paints. As you'll notice, this heart is just a little bit bigger than the actual heart that you'll see on the reference photo. Now the reason for that is because this jacket in particular is something that I found in the back of my closet, and I've had it for so long, and it's completely disproportionate to my body. However, to offset that, I really wanted to make the proportions of some of the objects on the jacket a little bit bigger because I am a beautiful, chubby little brown man, and I really want all of my assets to be featured in the best way possible. Now I'm going over the heart in multiple layers. First, I'm starting with a deeper purplish maroon color, and I wanted to create a foundation for the heart because I noticed in the reference photo that the heart is a little bit darker on top and it gets lighter at the bottom. So I wanted to blend in some maroons and deeper purples and reds, and then blend it with a neutral scarlet. A neutral red tone, and then at the base I'm using a lighter red and a white to kind of use for highlights. At the top, there's a cute little, I'm not really sure what it is, but it looks like a little crown, so I decided to, make it a little crown. I just added some yellows, I added just yellow in general, and I wanted that yellow crown to blend in with the purples and maroons, so that it all looks all put together. Now, in the end, of course, mine looks less like a human heart and more like a strawberry, but I'm not offended by it. I think it actually looks really cute, and it actually does look more a little bit more classic 80s heart tattoo, and I really kind of like that look. Now as I let that heart dry just a little bit, I'm going to go right back up to the top, and as you'll notice, my thin layers of red paint have dried for the stripes, and that's great! So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to reuse the same tape, and I'm reusing tape because I really don't like wasting tape. The paint on the tape has dried already, so I'm just going to use the same measurements from the tape and just bring it up onto the red parts of the fabric. It hasn't 100% dried just yet, but it's dried enough where I can kind of just go over with the white and kind of make it my own. Now, I made a very silly mistake here. Unfortunately, I started with a, a solid paintbrush, and I realized way too quickly that I'm just caking on this white, and that is not what I wanted. I still wanted that kind of distressed look, so I went back over it with a beauty foundation brush so that I can kind of squish it around and blend it out and kind of make it a little bit more even before the paint set into the fabric too much. It didn't work as well as I wanted to, but you know what? I'm gonna distress this jacket later. I think in the meantime, just making it what it is will be fine. And as you see, I'm gonna rip off that tape, and you'll notice that those lines are not clean because they were blended and the tape was reused, but that's okay because I'm just gonna go over it again. As you can see, I'm going right back in with the paintbrush after I remove the tape so that I can make those lines just a little bit straighter. I'm blending it in a little bit with the red so that it looks a little bit more cohesive. It is the front of the jacket, so I want to make sure that when it's seen, it's not offensive. Okay, while we're working on the front of the jacket, I'm just going to let that white paint dry, and I'm going to move it down a little bit and come right back to that cute little sugar skull. Now, I'm using a reference photo. It's really hard to determine the foundation of the paints for the sugar skull. So I highly recommend that you look at various reference photos from many sugar skulls and just make sure that you have the right colors within the paint. Now I think for the most part I got the right colors from what I can tell and what I can see. I see blues and some oranges and some yellows. And that's what I wanted to do with the sugar skull. So I'm going to start off with the base foundation of the white. And then I'm also going to add the little barbed wires while that heart is dry because I'm already using white. Might as well do that. Then I'm going to come back over everything with a Sharpie. I love a Sharpie. I love Sharpies. Sharpies are great. Sharpies are not permanent solutions for fabric. Yes, Sharpies are permanent markers. However, with several washes, Sharpies tend to be faded and tend to lose a lot of its luster. So do not settle for just a Sharpie look, especially on top of your fabric paint, because it will definitely, if you decide to wash this jacket, come off. So I went over the Sharpie with the paints. So while we're letting the sugar skull and the rest of the front of the jacket dry, I'm going to go in on the sleeve area. I knew I wanted the width of the stripe on the sleeves to be about 5 centimeters, so I decided to use a certain point of alignment on the sleeve. Now here's what I did in between these takes. I actually taped them down on the sleeves, put the jacket on to make sure the stripes were exactly where I wanted them to be, and then I went in with insurance to make sure that it was correct. Now I'm working with only 4 colors of fabric paint. I only have a solid red, a yellow, a white, and a deep navy blue. Now I specifically chose these colors because obviously they are our primary colors and they will work for anything that I need. And that was essential. I could have also purchased a black, but it's not necessary for this jacket just yet. Now you'll notice for the stripe, I decided to add some white to get me more of a cobalt instead of a navy because I really wanted that American flag kind of color. And for these sleeves, all I did was just go over them with a single layer of paint, and that's enough. That's so enough. I went in with a sponge. I cut up a little sponge and I just spread it around and just kind of dabbed it all over the place, and I really wanted to make sure that I got that somewhat faded look, but also a really cute solid color that really, really went well with the reds and whites on the front of the jacket. So I let the stripes dry a little bit, and while they were drying, before I went in, because I knew a lot of the stripes in general are going to be take some time to dry, I wanted to get started on that cute little flame that she has on her sleeve. I think this was a brilliant addition to the America Chavez jacket because it is just so classic to have any kind of flame on a denim jacket. I think it's just brilliant. So I used my primary colors and I made a nice like orangish red. And I started that as my base because I knew there were oranges in the flame itself, and I knew I could blend out the oranges as needed because you'll notice on the jacket that's on the film, there's a lot more reds and yellows popping out, but if I have the base of the orange, then at least I can blend the yellows and the reds together so that it gives it more of a flame kind of feel and a flame kind of look. After I applied that orange, I'm going to go in with a sponge, and I'm going to add that yellow, that really cute yellow at the base, and then I'm going to go right back at the top and clean up those lines with a solid red, and then blend that down into the orange of the sleeve. Now we're doing the front of the sleeve first because I really wanted this part to stand out. It's going to be the standout section. It's going to be what's mostly seen. And then we're just going to go right in and do the back. The back is really hard to find. It's so hard to find a particular reference photo for the back, so I'm just going to make it my own. Add a little touch and flair in my own style and fashion, and why not? It's going to be perfect. All right, while that dries, I am going to measure out location points for our stars. As you'll notice, I made my lovely little stencil for the stars. I'm really excited because the stencil can be utilized for everything. Or so I thought. You'll notice that the stencil bled through because the cardboard that I was using was not so great. It was actually the back of a KFC box. So, I decided to just kind of clean up those lines, and then I'm going to go over that star again just to clean up those lines further and make it a little bit bigger. Like I said, I wanted the proportions of a lot of the objects on the jacket to match myself because I'm a larger person. I really wanted the proportions to match up and align with my figure. So I went in with the star and I kind of free-handed the star. Stars are one of the hardest things for me to draw in general. I am so bad at drawing the proportions of a star because my ADHD kicks in and the perfectionism aspect just kind of really wants every point, every minute detail of a star to be perfect, and it's so difficult to do that, especially when you're working with a medium like paint on a surface that is so finicky. So I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna go over them each and every single star with a piece of tape. You do not have to do this. I highly recommend you find a stamp tool that will allow you to just kind of paste the stars as you can, but I think that the tape really just worked for me because it kind of settled my anxiety about my star shapes. And then I just went in on the other side of the sleeve, starting off immediately with my tape so that I can get those clean lines with my stars. You'll notice that my particular stars, what I wanted to do to add my own flair to it, my own little touch, was that I made the top two stars a larger size than the bottom star. Because I wanted to accentuate my shoulder area so that they were a little bit bigger, so they look a little bit bigger and a little bit more solid. And as you taper down, the stars would get smaller. You do not have to do this. You can make all your stars equal shapes and sizes, and that will just be you. You do you. And that's what makes cosplay perfect. Ooh, now my favorite part, the back. Referencing the back photo was a little bit of a challenge, but I think I got exactly what I needed. Like I said before, I am a larger person, so I wanted my star shape to be larger. I wanted to accentuate all aspects of the jacket, so I really wanted to make the star stand out, and I wanted to make it just a little bit larger. So that's exactly what I did. I decided to first start tracing with my lovely chalk pen. And then, of course, using my lovely masking tape, I wanted to get started first on our backing. So you'll notice that the star on the back of her jacket emits a beautiful blue light. And I'm going to be using the same cobalt that I used on the sleeves for this light. I didn't want to go too light on this color. This back part gave me a lot of stress. However, I think it's really important that you remember you have to trust the process. You can make mistakes and you can always fix your mistakes. You just have to trust the process and whatever you're doing. I started off way too clumpy and I got really nervous about that clump. So I decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to start deeper at the base and then blend it out. And you know what? I'm just going to let that blue do its thing and let it dry. And hopefully when it dries, it won't be as offensive to me. And while it's drying, I'm going to get started on that iconic little pride flag that she has painted on the back of her jacket. I think it's brilliant and wonderful, and it's such a great touch, especially for America Chavez, knowing her backstory from the comics as well as knowing who she is as an individual. I think it's so important to have that kind of representation in all aspects of film, nowadays especially. I mean, of course, we're all still waiting for that major, just kind of in-your-face representation that, you know, we've been wanting for every Disney movie. I mean, me personally, I'm just waiting for a double Prince movie. But until that day, little touches to costuming, little sides to gay parents, little nods to the LGBTQ plus community. This is what we need. We need that understanding, that representation, that unapologetic love. We spread it in our fashion. Now, with all that being said, I personally hate rainbows. I hate rainbows in particular because I hate drawing them. I'm so good with blending. However, with something that needs to be more solid, I'm not patient enough to wait for something to dry and then add a new layer and then dry and then add a new layer. So I just kind of like to get it all done. So for this particular rainbow flag, I decided to kind of blend a little bit so that the colors kind of mesh together in their own kind of state. If you want to be more solid, just make sure that you let the layers dry in between before you paint the next layer so that the lines are much more clean. And that's on you. You do you. Next, I'm going to add that lovely red outline that appears around the star. First, I'm just going to go in with the deeper red because I wanted to offset the deeper color of the blue instead of being too nervous. Instead of being too nervous that the blue would be too dark, I wanted to offset it with the bright red. So that I'm going to blend that red. And what I'm doing, and I know this is moving at triple speed, but what I'm doing here is I'm making circle motions with my brush. With those circular motions, you're going to get that nice blended kind of look and that kind of tattered glow around the white. And then I kind of pushed some of that red into the blue because you'll notice some of that occurs in the jacket as well. And I wanted to make sure that it happened fully. Now I let this red dry just a smidgen. I should have let it dry just a little bit more because I know that I'm going to use white, and it's really not a great idea to kind of go over any color with the white, especially red. When it bleeds and it's just going to look like a big pink blob. So what I decided to do when I started was start center and then kind of blend that out. And I'm just kind of making it as thick as possible. This is where I decided, all right, you know what? I'm gonna layer as much paint on as possible. You'll notice that it starts to bleed into the pinks, but don't worry, I'm gonna go over it again. I'm just adding a thin layer of white over this fabric paint. You only need a thin layer of paint. You don't need all that paint that you see that I put on my plates. It is a waste of paint. You only need thin layers at a time. And while I let that white dry, I'm going to go in and just add some cute little stars to the back of her jacket as well, above the right shoulder. Now, the reference photos from the film are really hard to interpret. Of course, there's reference photos from various individuals. The best reference photos I found are the America Chavez from Disneyland in Anaheim, California. The Avengers campus holds so many great costume representations, so if you ever need a reference photo for any kind of MCU character, I highly recommend you go to the costumes that are part of the Avengers campus at Disneyland. Now I'm just going to take off that tape. Oh, I love ripping off tape and seeing such nice lines. I'm going to go over that and make those lines a little sharper with red as I get deeper towards the star so that it looks a little bit more like there's more of a glow in the center. And I wanted to make sure those lines are really nice and sharp because I wanted that star to really just stand out. I wanted it to make it its own thing. Okay, so I found this reference photo online of someone who drew a America Chavez kind of front jacket. It's strange to me because it says on the jacket El Fuego. El Fuego, not sure what that means. That is not really a Spanish term. I think they were going with fuego, which means fire. But it didn't make sense to me because I don't know why they said the fire on the bottom of the jacket. So looking at the reference photo for the Avengers campus, America Chavez, that's when it made a lot more sense. It wasn't supposed to be fuego, it meant to be juego, which means play. And in the entirety of the jacket, it says terminando el juego. And that in Spanish means game over, which makes so much more sense. And I'm so excited about that because that's such a classic Chavez line. So I just added the cute little terminando el juego. I used a fabric pen for this. And the same goes for the amor es amor, which is love, on the side of her jacket. And you'll notice I'm doing that. Once again, going over with my gel pen and then going over with the fabric pen. Now, on the other side of the jacket, it says el karma no tiene. This sentence doesn't make sense because it's not a complete sentence. It says karma does not have, which means that it's an incomplete sentence. It means karma doesn't have something. Unfortunately, there's nothing on the back of the jacket. There's nothing that I could interpret from around the jacket. So I'm just gonna leave it as el karma because I think that's perfect. And that just means karma. And one of my favorite aspects of this jacket is that American eagle that is blended into the back of the jacket. And you'll notice from reference photos that it does kind of show up and appear, and very, very lightly it is a part of the jacket. So making this, I decided to dilute some fabric paint with water, and that way it gave me a solution that I could kind of go over in layers. And I stacked these layers slowly but surely, and I made a cute little American eagle that's kind of its own imprint. And then I highlighted those with a more solid fabric paint color so that it kind of stands out just a little bit more. And you'll notice that at the very end, it is a flying eagle on the back of the right sleeve, and it looks super cute. And of course, I'm adding that finishing touch, the ever so gorgeous pride flag. And here it is! Oh, isn't she cute and adorable? I've paired this with my lovely iconic Mickey hat. You won't be able to find this in stores because I make this myself. Maybe I'll make a tutorial out of that someday. But you can see this jacket is just so cute. I'm probably going to wear this for the Shanghai Disneyland opening day because we're still in lockdown here in Shanghai, but hopefully we'll open soon and the park will be open for business. I can't wait. I actually might just wear this jacket, not even as a cosplay, but just as an everyday jacket because it is super cute and it's actually very much my style. All you have to do is pair this with a nice gray shirt, some black pants, and you've got a cosplay or Disney bound ready for any event or con. And of course, please feel free to rate, review, and subscribe to this channel. We would love to have you be a part of the Ur Bear Necessities family. And be sure to check out our podcast at Ur Bear Necessities, wherever you get your podcasts. Oh, and add us on Instagram and Twitter because, I would love to see your final DIY looks. Tag us. I really want to see them. Tag us. All right. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.